Hello，大家好，欢迎大家来到这个播客，跟杨老师学中文。我是主播杨丽群，我在泰国曼谷给您带来的精彩学习汉语和聊聊中国的节目。Hello everyone, welcome you all to Study Chinese with Teacher Yang podcast. I'm your host Yang Li-Xun. This is a podcast about Chinese lesson and Chit Chat China, coming to you from Bangkok, the capital city of Thailand, the land of smile. Today's topic might not be something that people like to talk about, but it is something that relates to all of us very closely. It is something that we should know about because when we happen to encounter with the death of family members, we need to be able to prepare this thing conscientiously. Today's topic is funeral. Chinese funeral tradition varies according to areas and families. I myself never got a chance to join a funeral in China. I only used to join the funerals of the Chinese in Thailand. I used to witness the Gong Tek ceremony, which is one of the Chinese memorial service for the deceased. We'll be talking more about this ceremony later. I have collected and edited the contents to share in this episode about funeral. How Chinese people organize a funeral, what are the do's and don'ts when joining a Chinese funeral, and I'll end up with the two unusual but interesting jobs related to Chinese funerals. Please stay tuned for all of this and more. When there is the death of a family member, the first thing to do is to confirm the cause of the death. After that, get ready for the funeral. You may contact the funeral service organizers to help prepare for everything, including the deceased's makeup and dressed up, the coffin, and the place for the funeral ritual. For your information, funeral in Thailand usually takes place at the temples. For the rural areas in China, the funeral can be held at home or at family ancestral hall. Neighbors who know the deceased will be invited to join the funeral. There may be a ceremony called Gong Tek as I mentioned in the introduction, or Gong Te in Mandarin, which means merit. As the name implies, Gong Tek ceremony is a memorial service in which the deceased is commemorated by creating merits for their ancestors. Reputable monks will chant the mantras to release the suffering of the deceased and send his or her soul to heaven. The deceased children and other family members will stay in line according to the hierarchy and walk across the made-up pathway which symbolizes the way to heaven. It's like all the family members accompany the death to heaven. While walking the soul to heaven, the monks still keep on chanting the mantras. This is all about the Gong Tek ceremony or Gong Te ceremony. After the rituals, there might be a performance and a feast to entertain the people in the funeral. Last but not least is the cremation or the burial. In the past, most Chinese people prefer to bury the dead body instead of cremating. However, at present, it is quite hard and costly to find a cemetery in some areas in China. Therefore, people choose to cremate the dead bodies. Well, those are all about Chinese funeral tradition, which, as I mentioned earlier, varies according to areas and families. Now, let's talk about the do's and don'ts when joining a Chinese funeral. First of all, the dress code. As followed worldwide, the color of the dress should be black, white, or gray, or the color that is not too vivid. And remember, when joining the funeral, don't be late. It shows disrespect to the death and the family. Another important thing is you should prepare some gifts like some money or flowers to help out with the funeral expenses or to pay respect to the deceased. And remember to turn off your mobile phone to silent mode and don't use your mobile phone to entertain yourself and laugh out loud in the funeral. This is absolutely inappropriate. In addition, do not gossip about the dead person. Before you leave the funeral, don't forget to express your condolences to the family. We've learned the Chinese word for this in episode 69. It is 节哀顺变, or you can just say to the family, 节哀. This means you are very sorry for the loss and wish him or her to overcome this sadness soon. There is one very interesting belief of Chinese people about a funeral. They believe that after joining the funeral, yin qi or dark power will be clinging on them. Therefore, they will not return home right away after the funeral. They will go to the places filled with many people and happiness to get their yang qi or bright power before returning home. And before entering home, they will pat their clothes or shoes to drive away yin qi or dark power. Once getting in, they will change their clothes immediately. In addition, some Chinese won't let the small kids or the old people join the funeral. The unhealthy people should not join the funeral as well. There are lots of things to be aware of, aren't there? The last thing I like to share here is about the jobs in China that are related to the funeral business. There are two jobs I'll mention here. The first one is called professional mourning or paid mourning. Usually they will work in a team with some people playing music and the others perform the mourning. The performers usually cry and sing, describing how hard to lose such a good person as the dead person. This will create a mourning atmosphere for the funeral. Chinese people believe the crying out loud is a way to show their filial piety. So, if you get a chance to join a funeral in China and happen to come across such a big mourning scene, don't worry. The woman crying beside the coffin may not be the deceased family member. She is paid to do so. And believe it or not, she is really well paid. Some people in this profession could earn more than 30,000 US dollars a year. Can you believe that? Crying can also make such a big money. Wow, indeed. Another interesting job related to a funeral is the job that most parents don't expect their children to do because it's not a very auspicious job. It'll be a model for the dead people's clothes. This is a new job for online shopping. The model will broadcast herself wearing the clothes for the dead and try to sell them to the family members. This job not only brings about an income, but also happiness to help the family members of the deceased fulfill their last wish for the loved one. In addition, those who choose this job are said to be able to confront with death without any fear. Isn't that interesting? Death is closer to us than we think. There is no family without a dead person. No one can get away from dying. We should always be aware that sooner or later we'll die. To be aware of this fact helps us live our lives carefully. Spend each day to our best extent. Cherish the life we and family have. Stop anger and hatred and talk to one another happily so that if any of us have to die, we won't be regret. I wish we wouldn't be regret to lose the ones we love, and we wouldn't be regret when having to do the funeral for the family member. Lastly, I'd like to say sorry for chatting about this unpleasant topic. My purpose is to send encouragement to those who have to lose their loved one, either in the war, in the accident, or any other causes. Wish their funerals went on smoothly, and the ones who stay behind can live on their lives safely and carefully. 好了，今天的播客就到这了。感谢大家收听，咱们下周再见。Thank you very much for your listening. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.